All right, everyone, we're here joined by Houston Dash head coach Fabrice Gautrat. I'll go ahead and kick things off, and then we'll take questions here on Boom. Fabrice, off to the first of a two-game homestand here on Friday against Utah. How's the team navigating preparations for that match?
Yeah, overall good. Obviously a tight turnaround from our last game, especially traveling, but overall in good spirits. I think the biggest message, if you look at the first four games, it's sometimes been a tale of two halves. And I think the overall performance, I know it wasn't the result we wanted, but in terms of the overall performance from both halves, I think you could tell there was consistency in at least what we were trying to do and how we performed.
Thank you for that. We'll open it up to questions here on Zoom. Dustin, go ahead.
Hey, Fabrice.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. I know you talked a couple weeks ago about you guys are still kind of getting into what your lineups looks like, what your best 11 looks like. How do you feel that's going after these last few games? And do you feel you're getting closer to your first 11 and your key bench players and things like that?
Yes and no. If you look at, we had quite a number of players who were starting in previous games not start in these games for various reasons. Could have been injury, whatever it is. So yes, but I also think there's still room for continued evolution. So yeah.
And just Natalie and Avery, I know they've missed the last two games. How are they looking this week? And what do you think for them on Friday?
Yeah, I think they're both really close. I think those two are obviously big pieces in what we're trying to do. So yeah, we're optimistic. We can, hopefully at least get one of them, if not both, but we'll see.
Thanks, Fabrice.
Yeah, thank you.
Theo, go ahead.
Hey Fabrice, how you doing?
Good, Theo. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Looking forward to Friday. I was just talking to Paige about consistency, whether that's sort of in the 5 weeks of like what performance metrics are like consistent, because we've seen, like you said, different personnel, some of that enforced, some of that not enforced, different formations, different kind of game plans. But what are maybe the consistent metrics or consistent elements of the team that you've seen or that you want to see?
Yeah, I think you've seen in various games, second half, a very different response sometimes to the first half. And so what we talked about was, why is that? And if you look at it, sometimes those can be external drivers, which is not necessarily a bad thing. So we've talked about more, we need to flip it more and be, okay, what KPIs are we going to have from an internal motivation standpoint that we are going to be consistent in, where we're not relying on a score line or a halftime talk or different adjustments or subs. So I think that's been, when you say about consistency, I think this team is learning what it really takes. Yeah, we can sit here and play good football. We can do these different things, but like it takes an enormous amount of, and it's a whole collective. It's not like to keep a clean sheet. It's not just your back line and your keeper. Like you need everyone. And I think you saw a real commitment from the entirety of the game to defend, and I think you can't build anything off without that. I won't make a comment about calls or not calls in that first half, but I think if you look at it, like the game was completely in hand and then something happened and then we just had to adjust and we had to move on with it. But for me, what I was really pleased with was there was an internal motivation from the group. So I want to see that be consistent moving forward. So
In terms of, again, looking to Friday, does being back at home and maybe playing a team that has had not such a great start to the season, does that kind of put the emphasis back on you in kind of like a nice, in terms of that external motivation, right? Like everyone's got to think, okay, this is a game where we can on ball have that motivation to maybe dominate.
yes, I also think on the flip side, I think it's very easy to be like, okay, we're playing in this game at home, etc. We got to win right away. Like, I think the biggest thing is focus on the performance. Focus on the performance. Don't put any added pressure that we don't need to. Like, hey, let's just be consistent with our performance. I want to see two halves that are internally driven 100%. I mean, they're a team that also likes the ball as well. So we'll see how those things pan out. But 100%, like, yeah, we have a way that we want to play, but as you know, you have to adapt sometimes in this league. And I think you saw that in last game. So yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Of course, we want to get back to who we are and how we play for sure.
Last one for me, kind of in terms of, Paige was also talking about she's really enjoyed the intensity of the passing rotations in training. I love the way you're talking about this idea of motivation, external and internal. Are there any other like drills or educational pieces that you're putting into the training sessions that you feel like is to stimulate that motivation?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I'm seeing is we need to continually grow in everyone says communication, but the specificity and the intensity of our communication. And so constantly holding people accountable. So one thing we started doing passing patterns, before, and especially beginning of season, like I was holding them to a really high standard, our staff was holding them to a really high standard, but now it's like, okay, you said it, like last two good ones, like okay, if it's to your standard, then we move on. If it's not, we keep going, and so I think now it's putting more ownership on them and having them kind of steer more. And it could be simple things like a passing pattern. It could, even today, we did a lot of nonverbal communication. So just understanding each other, where you want the ball, signals, etc. So yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, yes, there's the tactical piece and the technical piece, but constantly thinking of ways where they are going to grow in their communication and the ownership of this entire process. So yeah.
Thanks so much for that, Fabrice. Appreciate you. Cheers.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Diego, go ahead.
Hey Fabrice, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
All good, can't complain. So we saw Diana get a couple of minutes against KC and get a start against Angel City. Overall, how have you been feeling about her performances and her time coming out of that injury from the beginning of the season?
Yeah, look, we all know her skill sets for sure. Yeah, I think Dee is doing really well. She's training well. She's chomping at the bit. She's ready to go. So she's still a very, very big piece. And at any given day, she could be, a starter for us. So obviously the last game we decided to go, with a different, skill set on the 9. But yeah, she's doing well. She's doing well. I think the biggest thing is how do we continually get into the attacking third to utilize her skill set? So I think we've been a little bit inconsistent with that. So I think that once that happens, then I think you'll really see her kind of get into a groove.
Thank you.
Alrighty, anything else for Fabrice before we wrap up here? All right, thanks for jumping on. We'll have this and additional items available later today.